Welcome to the Morningstar Podcast, a space for real conversations and shared experiences. Together, we'll explore the ideas and stories that inspire, guide, and connect us all. Let's get started. The Morningstar Podcast discusses topics related to recovery, addiction, and mental health, which may be sensitive for some listeners. We are not medical professionals, and this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or treatment. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Morningstar Podcast, episode 11. Today, we're joined by Dakotah Faye. Dakotah is a rapper and songwriter out of Minot, North Dakota, also a member of the recovery community. And I know I've seen some articles and stuff about him using that platform to kind of serve the community as well. So do you want to introduce yourself, Dakotah?
Yeah. So my name is Dakotah Faye. I grew up in Minot, North Dakota. Well, family's from Williston, but grew up in Minot, went to Bishop Bryan High School, Catholic school, and became interested in music at a very young age. Mm-hmm. And also got interested in other extracurricular activities at a young age and kind of sort of shape, those two things kind of go hand in hand, the music and the lifestyle or what you think so. So, struggled with alcohol and drugs pretty much my entire life. And like I said, they went hand in hand doing music and doing shows and the people that you're around and the kind of lifestyle that you're in. So kind of fell into that. And music has always been there. It's always been my passion, thing that I've always loved to do. It's always kind of been like my foundation, my home base. Like even throughout my addiction, I started making music really young when I was 13, 14 years old. And so long before I had tried any sort of drug or drank any alcohol like that. So it's always been kind of my diary. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of got to see throughout my, 10 years or 15 years of doing music and shows and stuff of kind of what it's like to be down in that hole and make music and be expressive, but also on the other side. So now I'm 2.5 years sober.
Congratulations.
And, thank you.
Yes.
You never think that you're going to get tired of hitting the bottom, but you eventually do. So ever since then, I've tried to pass it on and be active and help, other people that might be in the same situation that I've been in. So music has always been that kind of way that I can reach other people.
Yeah. And it's crazy to me, like your guys' profession is probably, in my eyes, would be one of the hardest to remain sober in.
For sure.
Yeah. And then you see guys like I think even the Suicide Boys are 12-stepping now.
Yeah. Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is like the last thing I expected to see, but I think it's like a movement happening almost.
Indeed.
Like this recovery thing. And you grew up in Minot then?
I did.
So how did you get into music? What was the kind of the reason that you turned to that?
Well, I started writing poetry when I was really young. I'm an only child, a very like introverted in that way. I was very like quiet and shy. So I would write and journal and stuff like that. And I'd always been a fan of hip hop music. But when I was 14 years old, my brother Eddie Mack, who's here actually, he had been rapping before that and kind of got me on a song one day. Just so happened. And then I fell in love immediately. Just the expressiveness. It felt like I could finally like be confident and get my emotions out. And I just felt cool. I always didn't feel cool, I think, a lot of my youth. So music really helped me like get out of that frame, get out of that box and really like express myself. And it's just, I fell in love from the first moment I did it. And it's the only thing that I think about, dream about, everything now. It's just, it's powerful. Music is very, very powerful. It's like it's the universal language of the world. I feel like, no matter who you are, music can always touch you and, help you out in good, bad times, whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's like a positive for you too, because I noticed there's something I really want to, so like I'm in school to be an addiction counselor and I'm in psychology, but there's something I really want to study. And that's like the connection between finding your purpose in life and sobriety, but you kind of had it backwards where you found your purpose in life, went down that road, but now like that purpose is, I'm sure it helps you,
Absolutely.
Helps you stay sober and helps you stay focused.
Oh, well, I think one of the biggest things that helped me through my addiction and everything like that was staying busy, I think when you have more free time on your hands, you can fall back into your old ways because, you know, you have nothing better to do or you have nothing to put your energy into. But, you know, finding a passion or finding a reason to, you know, stay sober and continue on that path is good. So I'm very glad that I had music before it because I don't know where I'd be at now if I didn't have my wife's, you know, or music or my friends or my family.
Yep.
If I didn't have that stable foundation, you know, because you meet all these people when you're in addiction and they're your friends and you're there and these are the people that you hang with out with all the time. But you lose those connections to the people that actually care and actually matter to you.
Yep.
And then when you get, you know, you recover or recovering, you know, you don't even see those people ever again. I couldn't even tell you how many people I partied with that I don't even speak to or see anymore ever.
Right. I think another part of like getting sober too is like you have to create a life for yourself that's worth staying sober for. And I think you're doing a really good job of that. Also surrounding yourself with a lot of positive people and people that want the best for you. I think that's the most important part of getting sober and staying in recovery. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm very lucky because the people that I have in my life were there for me before, they're there for me during, they're there for me after, and just having that support of being able to rely on people with your emotions, with your burdens, with your baggage, whatever the case is, and not feeling like so alone. You know, I think a big reason a lot of people end up relapsing, or the case is not having that support system around them, which, I mean, you know, I'm sure, you know, the services that you guys, you know, give to people, that's the kind of stuff that really, really helps people stay on the right track towards recovery, because it is hard to do by yourself. But, you know, finding other people, knowing that you're not doing it alone, that is the biggest thing. You know, I think that's why in any sort of, you know, the 12-step program or any of these programs, it's just surrounding yourself with people that are also going through the same things you are, because it's so much easier to kind of talk about it and express yourself without feeling ashamed or embarrassed, because it, you know, once you're on that other side, it can feel like gross, you know, like what you went through and like all those things that you did, or, you know, all the people that you hurt. But, you know, your story doesn't end with those type of things. You know, we're not bad people. We just make bad decisions sometimes. So it's nice to have other people there to reassure you that those things are okay.
Yes.
So it's very important to have that.
I agree.
That foundation for sure.
Yeah. And so I started following you, I think it was right after I had gotten sober. So maybe 3 years ago. And so I kind of seen your whole, the switch, whatever happened, you know, and I thought it was so cool. I like the skits too. I like the skits.
Thank you.
He's in North Dakota.
Thank you very much.
And it's always been one of my pet peeves, man. I'm like, why don't we have a rapper from North Dakota yet? That's like big, you know, like someone to get our message out there.
For sure.
And then I stumbled across, I think on TikTok. You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I've noticed like you have a, how have you seen that base grow, and how have you seen like social media benefit, you know, or maybe not benefit you in your career?
It's been incredible, especially TikTok. Like you said, I cannot tell you over the past 3 years how many people will be like, oh, I found you on TikTok, or, you know, from the North Dakota music series that I did, or the skits, or whatever the case is. Like, it's not always just the music that people get to know you from. But social media has, you know, I've been making music since 2008, 2009. So back in MySpace, that was when I was putting music on MySpace. So I've been around pretty much the entire time that like social media and promoting yourself as a musician on social media. So I've really seen like the entire, you know, development of how you do that. And now it's, you know, a lot of artists can kind of feel like it's overbearing because you have to kind of do this other job with being a musician. Now it's like being a content creator and being on camera and talking to people, but I can yap with the best of them. So I really quite enjoy being able to do it, and doing it on a camera just is easier for me than, I don't know. I perform in front of a bunch of people, but for some reason it's nice to kind of express yourself through a different medium, like, you know, video and stuff like that. So I've kind of just adapted. You kind of have to, and doing music in anything, but it has helped tremendously. Like, yeah, I cannot tell you over the past 3 years how many people are like, I know you from TikTok. I'm like, cool, awesome. You know, so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And I was just telling Des yesterday, I was like, man, I can because I speak at a lot of events and things, and I'm like, man, I can get up to the podium and just like catch fire up there,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But you put that camera on me and you get this mic in front of my face, and it's like I freeze up, you
Yeah,
know? So I had to say a little prayer before we got going here today, just to kind of bring myself back in, you know? So I don't know how. So all this we started about what
Couple months ago.
couple months ago
Yeah.
we actually launched it, but maybe a year and a half ago we pitched the idea, and we were trying to fill this what we found to be a missing gap in these recovery podcasts. You know, like there's a lot of come on, just tell us your story, you know, tell us how you got sober, what you did, what you do now, but there wasn't a lot of people bringing different members of the community in to kind of share what they're doing, you know. And we've had a grandmother come on here, which was awesome, you know. We've had a lot of people come on from our services. We've had our culture department come on, and just trying to fill that gap, you know. And I think having you on here is going to help do that too.
For
you know?
sure.
And I hope whatever we do today, I hope that can help promote you. We just hit 100 subscribers, so we're a little behind you. You know, we're a little behind you.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
Right.
So I want to thank everyone for that too.
Yeah, that's
made my
really
day
cool.
last weekend.
That's
know?
awesome.
But yeah, so what do you have going on right now, music wise and career wise, and how's it looking?
Well, I'm keeping myself busy, which is nice. I feel like I don't know, everything I feel like ever since I got sober, everything like has more purpose. Like my message, my just every decision that I make, like everything has purpose, and it feels like everything lines up when that happens. You know what I mean? I'm starting to get more opportunities to talk to, you know, people like you and do different events to help the community, but I'm getting more show opportunities. I'm on the road more. I just have more time I feel like the music has purpose. It's being made easier for me. It seems like, not that, like I said, I've always, you know, I did it before and after my addiction stuff. So I've always been able to make music, but now it just feels like it has purpose. Like I'm not just, everything is purposeful and has a reason. So I'm very lucky. So I'm always working on music. I got tons of music already recorded and ready to go. Playing a show here tonight in Bismarck, You Name It Fest, which is going to be awesome. So I'm constantly doing shows and I'm constantly on the road and I'm constantly busy, but it's like, this is what I've always dreamed of. And now I feel like I have the time and the purpose to do it. So it feels great. It really does.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit? I was reading the thing about you did a concert and donated the earnings to a school lunch program.
Yes. Yeah. So I did that. I actually did that 2 years ago. We donated to the Minot Public Schools, lunch debt. Cause for me, I grew up, I went to a Catholic school that was very expensive. I don't know why my mom did that. Only child, but, and a single parent, like my mom did it all by herself. It was very expensive, but she wanted me to get, a better education. And so, I didn't have a lot of lunch money a lot of the time. So I was one of those kids that had, you can't eat lunch today. You don't have lunch so I know what it feels like to be that kid, like sitting at the lunchroom, not being able to eat. It sucked. It really did. And I still don't understand why the state doesn't make lunch free for kids. It's beyond me, but I felt like it was something that I needed to do. So we did that and we raised money. And even the year afterwards, I was donating to different elementary schools and making money for the kids. So definitely something that I want to do again in the future. I hope I don't have to, and they just make it free for kids. But it's something that I like to, be invested in these certain charities and stuff for, causes that really affected my life that I know enough about. I don't want to be someone that just, does something to do something. But so I'm very passionate about that. So I'm glad that I got to do that, and it's nice to use the gift to kind of give back to the community and the stuff that I believe, especially these kids. These kids should be able to eat and not, feel a certain way about it.
And so you've been on a few podcasts. I was watching them. What's something you would want your fans to know that you haven't brought up on another podcast that they don't know about you?
I'm very big into video games. If you want to play me in any sort of video game, I will kick your butt. Especially retro ones. I like to collect retro video games. I was very big as a only child. I didn't have to share a lot, so I was any video game I was at home playing. So I'm very I love playing the old school video games. I just got a Steam Deck, me and my wife did, and I've been playing all the retro, like GameCube, all that stuff. But anybody that wanted Super Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, bring it on. I'm taking you down any day.
Hell yeah. So like using your platform, I see like in some of your TikToks too, like a lot of your fans like will reach out to you and like congratulate you on your sobriety or like how your music's helped them in a certain way. Like, how does that make you feel? Like, is that like what
Unreal.
your music, isn't that would be like what the mission would be, right?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I didn't go out like, you know, trying to, I don't know. You know, my goal wasn't to like inspire others in a weird way. It was just kind of like telling my story, and it's always been my release. It's always been my therapy to like, it's like my journal, you know. I was very shy or quiet, so I just always told my story. Even when I was going through my addiction, I would make music about it. That's just how I was. So it's unreal to think that, you know, the way that music has helped me, my music can help somebody else, and just seeing those messages changes it gives everything purpose. Like the reason why I feel like I have so much purpose now is because of people messaging me like that and you know, telling their stories and being able to be like this kind of safe space community for all these other people going through addiction and recovery. It's beautiful. I mean, you know, even people message me saying that they are 30 days sober, whatever the case is. Like, it's so awesome to hear that. And I'm so glad that I've built like this kind of community around, you know, something that's so important in my life. It's really resonated with people and really gave, I don't know, just a sense of purpose in everything. It really has.
So when did you know, like, when did you know you had a problem, and when did you know you had to stop? And then when did you, compared to like, what was that time frame like? Did you know a long time before, or did it just happen and you kind of made that switch, or how did that process work for you?
I think I was just really ignorant to it for a long time, where I ignored it, where it was like, well, I'm not as bad as that person. You know, you would go party and, oh, I only do it, you know, on the weekends. Oh, I'm only doing it occasionally. You know, all my friends are doing it. You know, we're all doing it. It doesn't seem, oh, I'm not getting fired from my job or whatever. And then those things start to happen where like, it's not just on the weekends. It's every single day. It's now you're going 4 days in a row. Now you're missing work every single day. And now I'm having to do different jobs, and I'm starting to see my friends less. I'm starting to go visit my family less. I'm starting to see I'm missing birthdays. I'm missing all this stuff, you know, just because of my addiction. And it hits you like a ton of bricks. It felt like, you know, I didn't have a problem for a long time, and then all of a sudden you realize that you're at the bottom of the hole, and you're looking up and you're like, how did I get here? And now you can't leave. It's like, you know, trying to get out felt like quicksand. You know what I mean? You don't realize that you're under until you're completely under. And so it was a long time. You know, I had problems with drugs and alcohol, not so much alcohol until I was older, but in high school, I did every drug in the book. You know, I almost got kicked out of school because of it. And so I had problems. You know, I had to get clean and kind of figure out my life. And I went to college and I started doing music again. And then eventually, like I said, it was the lifestyle. It just became normal again to do drugs. And then I started getting into alcohol. And then once those two things were like meshed together, it was a slow descent for pretty much my entire 20s. It was, you know, a good 8 years of kind of just numbing myself and slowly getting worse and worse and worse until I had to do something about it, you know? Yeah, I think I got sick and tired of being more hungover more days than I was actually felt good, you know? And it was not a fun time. It felt like it crashed really hard. And luckily I was able to quit, but you know, it was after 100 times of saying I was going to quit and finally just getting sick and tired of it. Luckily I had my wife who was also going through the same thing as me, and we were able to kind of, with our stubbornness, kind of do it together. I'll tell you this story. It really was like, we were both like, oh, we're going to stop. We did this a couple of times where we were like, we're going to stop. And finally the last time it was like, I'm so stubborn that I don't want to be the first one to break. And she's the same way. So we both just were so hard-headed that we got sober. And then eventually it was, you know, a week. It turns into a week. it turns into a month, it turns into 3 months. And then now you're looking at 2.5 years and you're like, wow, it feels, we were just talking about this the other day. It feels like it was a lifetime ago. Like I couldn't believe it. I can't believe it. So, I'm very lucky. Again, like you were saying earlier, you really got to have that support system and people around you that help, because it's tough to do on your own. Right. I tried to quit many a times before me and my wife were even roommates together. And it just never worked out, so.
And that's great. Like it's so cool how all of our story, I know Des can tell a little bit about hers too, but so the first time I ever tried to quit drinking and doing drugs, I was 17 and I was about to be a dad. And my dad was never in my life. I met him when I was young, and he came around for a week and then he left and never came back. So when I was about to have my son, I made a decision that I was going to stop. I just got expelled from school. I was like, I had kind of had this realization that drugs and alcohol were causing some of the issues in my life. So like, yep, I'm going to quit. And I ended up signing up for a trade school. I went down to Wyoming. I was doing really good. And then on my birthday, I still hung around the same group of people, It's like, it's just how it always works for me. But so I was still around the guys that were partying, and on my birthday, they were like, hey, you want to come out for your birthday? And sure, so I go there, I get blacked out drunk. I wake up back at home, and I didn't notice it until way later in my life where I'm doing a lot more reflecting back and kind of putting work into looking at those issues. But by the time I left Wyoming a couple months later, I had to drink myself to sleep at night, and I didn't notice that progression. And I might have never noticed it, but that's been the constant story of my life, and I think just some of us, once we have one, we can't stop.
No. Yeah.
I know they had to lock Des up.
Yeah, throw away the keys. Yeah, it was tough, man. Like the only time I really got to kind of sit down and think that I actually had a problem was in a federal holding cell. When right before I got picked up, I was putting my family in danger, my kids, everybody around me, like I put in danger because I had a federal indictment out, and then I was a bystander of a Houston homicide that I nearly got killed and shot. You know what I mean? So like I had Houston homicide calling my family, threatening them that if they ever hear from me, that like, you know what I mean? Like if you don't tell us, like we're charging you guys with a harboring fugitive, which is a felony. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like me not like really seeing or noticing like how big of a deal that I'm causing to everybody around me that loves and cares for me. I couldn't see that until I got a little bit of sobriety under my belt. You know what I mean? Nobody to blame but myself. I had a hold. Like I was on federal hold. I had no bond, nothing. So like nobody could save me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So and I had to really think of like the consequences of like my own decisions. I couldn't blame anybody. And then like that not knowing of like I could be sitting prison time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Due to my own choices and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm thankful. And getting that federal indictment, like me being a felon today, it's made life a lot tougher. But like I'm alive today. You know what I mean? Like, and there's been numerous times where like my addiction could have took me out plenty of times. Overdose. I have a lot of trauma today that I'm still working through and probably will work through the rest of my life. I'm still building family relationships today. So like, and there's one thing that my grandma said, like when me and my sister were out there in addiction, like, you don't have any friends when you get sober. You know what I mean? But like, my family was the only ones there at the end. You know what I mean? My family, like they had to set some hard, tough boundaries for me. And while I was in addiction, I was like, you guys don't even care. You guys don't love me. You know what I mean? You guys are so mean. That did care. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, after you hurt them for so long, you know what I mean? Like they have to set those tough boundaries. So, but yeah, like when I start getting sober, you know what I mean? Like my family was the only ones there that were trying to help lift me up and pull me out of that hole that I dug myself into. You know what I mean? And they're still there today. Like you said, you know what I mean? Like I'm blessed with a really strong support system and getting into recovery, I build even a stronger foundation with like the people in the rooms. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, life's truly a blessing today. And yeah.
And I teased Des, but they locked me in prison a couple times, and it didn't do nothing to stop me.
Yeah. No, me neither. I was in jail for a good few weeks, and I went out and still. And I was on the drug patch and everything, and I was getting my friend to take it off of me, and like so I could do drugs for the 2 weeks, and then put it and then try to heat it back on.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it didn't work.
I tried putting tinfoil.
So
Yeah, I tried doing tinfoil under mine. Someone said like bologna or something.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Some
I
bologna.
heard that too.
There was all kinds of things. None of it worked.
No, I got caught immediately. Yeah. I went in there like I was like, "Oh, this looks good." He was like, "You took it off." I was like, "What? How could you tell? I've been blow drying this for like 40 minutes."
Oh my god!
Unbelievable. Yeah, the things that we do, you know.
Mm-hmm. Just to keep going.
Yeah.
So show us the vision. What do you see, or what do you want your music to do over the next 5 years?
Obviously I want it to be my only job. I work a 9 to 5 as well. So to be able to be self-sustaining would be the main goal. And I'm very well on that path. You know, I'm starting to make good income from music and being able to be self-sustaining as far as a business goes. So that's been my main goal, is just being financially responsible, because, you know, as former addicts, we're not very fucking good at keeping money well. So I've never been good at that. So I'm getting used to all these new like things in life that I never really experienced, you know, being like an addict or, you know, in that. So being able to just spread that message and, you know, show that we do have really good music and really good rappers up here in North Dakota where people wouldn't think. So just being that, I don't know, pave that road that hasn't ever been made before, and kind of help other artists. I've always been big on, you know, giving advice to any artists that ask me. You know, I'm very blessed that, you know, any artist would ask me questions, and I always wish that I had that, because I didn't. Growing up, we didn't know of any other and there were other rappers here in the state, but we didn't know about them. Like I said, this was kind of before social media, so we had to figure everything out on our own, you know, recording ourselves and mixing and finding shows and doing all that stuff. So anytime I can give advice to any of the younger artists in the state or anywhere in the you know, in the world, I'm very much so doing that. So just really want to build a community of, you know, positive message, and just for any North Dakota artists, I just really want to pave that way and be that, you know, kind of shining beacon of whatever the case is.
And I remember when I was in Wyoming, and I was roommates with this guy who was a rapper, and he was like, "You can rap where you're from and no one will show up, but if you go 20 miles across the state line and no one knows you, they'll all love you." And I thought that was so weird.
It is.
But I believe it to be true.
It is.
Know?
It really is.
You kind of got to go out and build that base, or in your case, you know, TikTok, build that base, and then kind of use that to, oh yeah, this guy can rap, you know. Oh, by the way,
I couldn't tell you, dude. I mean, you know, you're in your town for your whole lives, and people see you how they see you. They, you know, they knew you before you were a rapper or whatever the case is. But yeah, even still to this day, like, I love Minot and playing shows there, and I do get a lot of love there, and it was where I made my name. But I've kind of taken a step back from playing there, because there's just, I mean, everybody knows who I am there, regardless if it's being a rapper or just being Dakotah or whatever the case is. So I've definitely traveled out more and you know, seeing the country, and it is true. You get a lot more love from other cities. It's just people don't see you as, you know, the guy they went to school with or whatever the case is. You know, they see you as this rapper. They see you as, you know, this kind of like celebrity or whatever it is. So, you know, you always get a little bit more of like a reaction, more of like a kind of a fan interaction, rather than like, oh, Dakotah, I seen him at the grocery store last week kind of situation.
Cash wise. Yeah.
Exactly. So traveling has been awesome. It's what you do. You gotta get out and make your name.
Yeah. So you said you guys started off doing all your own production, editing. How's that look today?
Still. That's why I'm not a big fan of like going to a studio. Like, you know, I've been in these big cities, and you go to these studios and there's a fucking 50 people there, and, you know, people are talking, and I don't work like that. I'm very much like, I get an idea for music, I can run into my studio in my house, record myself, send it out, you know, even do features with other artists, just doing it all over the computer. Like unless, you know, they're in town or I know them or my friends or whatever, but I'm just very much so like my own creative space. I got my boys, Eddie and Callie and Rhett, you know, the guys in my crew that I really trust their ear for music, and they help me create music. But other than that, it's it's still the same way. Still just like a hermit locked in my house making this music on my computer. It's always been like that for like 20 years. So, and it's still the same way.
As a self-made podcast editing master.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned everything I know from podcast editing from YouTube.
YouTube University, swear to God, yes. Same way. Any question I have on any edit, it is like the ultimate encyclopedia of like, there's step by step. They're showing. Oh my God, it's incredible.
I was so mad the first couple weekends. These guys were yelling at me.
Oh my God, he just like nitpicked every little tiny thing. You know what I mean? And it like made him sick a little bit. We're like, hey man, can I take a break? You know what I mean?
What can we just release? He's like, no, it's not ready yet.
That's exactly.
That's exactly.
Like, just give me the computer, buddy. It's okay. No. It's good enough. I promise you. We're our own. You know, we're our own worst critics.
Oh,
no,
you know,
really
when you're
though.
editing and in anything in life, you're always like, it's not good enough yet. It's got to be better. And you got to have friends there that are like, it's okay. Just release it.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to I listened to a lot of podcasts, but I was listening to like this big time sports podcast guy, you know, just huge. I'm not gonna say names, nothing, but just huge. And now I hear like the mic tap, or I'll hear something, and I've never heard that before, but now I hear it, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not, you know, maybe I'm doing okay. Like maybe I don't need to take that out. If they're not, they make $1 million and they're not taking it out.
You'd be surprised. I just had this. I was at the gas station the other day, and one of the cashiers is like going to school for producing and stuff, and she was saying the same thing. How she will never listen to music the same way because you're nitpicking all these little things that you didn't even hear before, but now that you've actually edited it, you're like, you hear every little thing, like, oh, this hi-hat, the high frequencies are too high on it. Like, you know, like hearing the mic tap, you just never listen to it to the same again. You're like just a different person afterwards.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And your I did want to ask you about your last name.
Yeah.
Are you enrolled?
I am. Yeah. Up at Turtle Mountain.
Awesome. And how's that experience? Have you ever been around there, been up there?
No, not really. I'm gonna be honest. My dad, same situation, wasn't around. My mom is half native too, but all of my family on that side grew up in Wilson, Trenton, in that area. But I never, you know, I've always felt this disconnect because I'm half white, half native. So, and especially going to a Catholic school with a bunch of white kids, I was like the most native kid they knew. So I felt really native there. But then, you know, I go around native people and I feel like the whitest dude ever. So I've always kind of had this weird disconnect. But I've noticed the more that I've been getting known for music, the more that Native American community has really embraced me, and slowly learning more about, you know, Ojibwe and my people, and learning more stuff about that, and getting to go down to the Gathering Nations and play shows down there, and
awesome.
Really get to meet, you know, our community and people. And I really feel embraced. You know, I did a show last year at MHA at the Interpretive Center, and I've slowly been feeling like me, you know. I am multifaceted. I'm not just one thing. I'm not just native. I'm not just white. I'm not just an addict. I'm not just a musician. You know what I mean? So kind of getting accepted by all of those things that I felt, you know, that was another big reason I think I turned to drugs and alcohol so much, as I was so confused about who I was as a person and wanting to be accepted. I would do anything, you know, try to be cool or try to fit in or, you know, all these things. So I'm very blessed that you know, on this road of recovery, I've really gotten to reconnect with a lot of things that I didn't really feel comfortable with before, and my heritage is one of those.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I grew up on the Standing Rock Reservation, and obviously my pigment's just a little off.
Sure. You know? I'm not gonna lie. When you spoke the first time, I was like, okay, all right.
Good.
I know I call people all the time for work, and then I show up, and they're like, "Where's the guy I talked to on the phone?
Where's the other guy?"
Here I am. You know? No, so yeah, I grew up there, but the same thing, man. Like I always, I wanted to fit in for one, you know, and I mean there was times in my school where I would be the only white kid, you know, which was unique. Like, for sure. So, but I seen, looking back on it now, like there was never nothing I wasn't willing to do in order for you to accept me. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So whatever it was, like I didn't care. And like that chip on my shoulder, whatever you want to call it, like just kind of carried through my life and got me in more trouble and more trouble. And I also think it's a good thing, you know? I think I think us being able to figure out who we are through recovery is huge. You know, like I don't think, I'm glad I didn't have to die without knowing who I was.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the way things were going for me anyway. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really gives like you a reason to continue on recovery, because you see how much you've grown and how much you've like really achieved these things that you were kind of like running away from in your addiction. And you're like, I could never, ever go back to that ever. You know what I mean? It gives you such a strong like reason to continue and keep doing what you're doing. So, you know, congrats to both of you guys too. Because that's incredible. You know, you think you have like a crazy story, and then you hear another person's and you're like, wow, you know what I mean? Holy crap.
Wow, Des.
Federal prison, holy
geez.
you know what I mean? But that's incredible. Like to come from where you're at to be where you're at, like that's inspiring to not only yourself, but other people around you. So like, that's huge.
Yep.
Huge.
So what's things looking like? You just released the album?
I did.
Yep.
I did.
How's that going?
Incredible. You know, I'm a big album project. It's really like a snapshot of your life at that moment. I really feel that way about albums in general. I know the general consensus for the music industry these days is just like release a bunch of singles and wait to see one blows up on TikTok or whatever the case is. But I've always been a big fan of putting a project together. So I've always done that, and I'm always really proud of them. And these last two are the ones that I've done since I've been sober. So they're even more monumental to not just my music career, but my life. And they've really, you know, shown the growth of me as a person, you know, trying to rebuild these connections, like you said, with these, with family and people and friends that you've hurt along the way. And then now, like my newest album, Uninvited Guests, it just feels like I'm kicking the door down. I feel like I'm like here, I'm confident, you know, I'm ready to make it, you know, I made amends and now I'm trying to take over. So I really feel like that way in not only my music career, but where I'm at in recovery as well. So it's, you know, art imitates life, as they say. So I'm very proud of that. And that was a few months ago, and I just got done doing my tour to promote that album. So now I'm on to the next thing. Now I'm letting life kind of create the next project that I have for me.
Yeah. And I listened to the album and I even heard a skit, and I was like the Leonardo DiCaprio thing. I was like, oh my gosh, someone can do a skit in the album still? That still happens?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm such like I love, you know, all those old albums growing up, especially hip hop ones, having those cool, like, you know, skits and stuff like they're on that. So I love doing that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what do you do for your 9 to 5?
I work at Caves, which you guys have here in Bismarck, but I work in the Minot one.
Okay.
So I do car, you know, home and audio, security, all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because I had never done like an audio starter or like speakers in a car before. And I'll get a car in on, you know, how to do whatever, straight to YouTube. I'm like, how do I take off the deck in this 2008 Tahoe? I'm like, all right, oh, cool, all right, cool. Yeah, I got a lot of experience when it comes to YouTube University. So they've helped me tremendously in that job. But I love it. You know, I still deal with music and kind of, you know, building stuff. It's cool to like at the end of, you know, putting in a crazy system for somebody and listen to it. You're like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, here's my song. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know, I'm testing my songs in too. I'm like, okay, the bass does sound good in this. Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, you know, it's a great job. I really enjoy it. It gives me stability to be able to leave all the time and you know, travel and do shows. And I have a great boss that, you know, gives me the flexibility to kind of miss some days to do shows and stuff. So, you know, if you really want something in life, if you're really passionate about it, you'll make it work. No matter the circumstances that you're given, you'll find out a way to achieve it and make it work, you know, within the confines of your own life. So, very lucky guy.
Yeah, and I mean, especially to chase a dream like yours, you know, like even mine. Like I said, I'm aspiring to be an addiction counselor. I'm in college and I'm a single dad. And like, if I didn't have a boss who was like aware of that and like supported that dream, it'd be impossible. You know, like just the other day, we're up at Good Road doing a group. The school texts me, you know, your daughter's got a rash on her whole body. I'm like, okay, I'll be right there.
Okay, see you later, Des.
See you later, Des.
Like, no, please.
I know. Oh my God.
But I mean, like like I said, having people like that to support you. You know, having your loved ones around, and I think that's important, man. And I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I love watching from afar. You know, so right away when I followed you, I commented on one of your videos and you replied back.
Oh, I always do.
And
I
you
always
made
try to.
like you made a fan right there.
Well, I'm glad. A lot of, cool rappers would make you believe that you got to be mysterious and kind of like, but like I'm so I remember when nobody listened to my music or nobody commented on my stuff, and it's like I'm so thankful for that like I would like a response from somebody if I said something like, "Oh, this is a great song." Like I'd be like, okay, all right, just leave me on red or whatever. But so I always try to make sure to answer back to every single person that I can, because awesome. I would love if the shoe was on the other foot. So I'm glad that it my marketing worked. I tricked you into being a fan. It works.
I would have been a fan anyway.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really do.
So a question we usually ask, and it's kind of dependent on like what people's career are, but we always ask, what would you tell this person, if they're in similar shoes? So what would you tell someone from North Dakota who's aspiring to be a rapper?
Be delusional. Be as delusional as you can, because you will have so many people that tell you no, that tell you can't, that tell you it's lame, that you can't do it. There's no opportunities here. Believe that you can achieve it. Be absolutely delusional in the things that you do, almost like obsessive over it. Work as hard as you can, make music. That's the number one component, is make your music, be original, find things that make you, write about things that and love, and be delusional as you can. Mm-hmm. But a big thing is reaching out to other artists and, attending shows, being a part of the community that you're in first. When I first started out doing shows and stuff, we would do open mics like 4 times a week, just trying to get experience on doing shows and meeting other artists and producers and promoters and venues and all these things, and just really enthralling myself in the community of, because we do have it, regardless of what people think. There are tons of music. Today's show at Rhythm Records is an example of that. There's like 30 different bands and stuff playing today. Awesome. Yeah, you know what I mean? So in all these different genres. So, if I was an aspiring musician, I'd probably go to that and talk to people and talk to these artists and figure out, how they make music or how they handle themselves. Just be curious, be, patient, work hard, and be delusional.
I think delusional is the word.
Yeah.
Like that. So I was sitting in a treatment center. I had gotten there with the garbage bag full of stolen clothes. I had warrants. I had 3 open cases. Like I had no future in sight. And I got this dream like given to me then, and I remember I started telling people about it, and everyone was like, just calm down, just stay sober today. Just calm down. And if I wouldn't have been delusional about, I'm going to go back to school, I'm going to get my bachelor's degree, I'm going to get licensed, I'm going to get my kids back, I'm going to do all just delusional, But if I wouldn't have been delusional, I would have never been even to this point where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to be delusional. I think if the dream is small enough for you to believe it all the time, it's probably not from your higher power. You know what I mean? Like it's probably just something that you, like, we can accomplish so much more than we believe we can accomplish.
Right.
And especially like coming into recovery, and a lot of time our confidence is real low. We don't really believe in ourselves anymore. No one else believes in us.
Right.
Like, figure out what your thing is and be delusional.
I agree.
And you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, is there anything else you want to share with us before we get off? Or?
Well, I really do appreciate it. It's like I said, like doing stuff like this, I get to talk about my music a lot, but I don't really get to talk about my journey, and getting to share that, stories with you guys and, all the people that are watching. It's incredible. And let this be an example, these conversations that you have, that like, you're not going through this alone ever. There's other people that have similar stories to you, that have found a way and found people around them that really believe in them and made them believe in themselves again. I think that was the biggest thing for me, was learning to believe in myself again. And if I didn't have family and friends that gave me a million fucking chances, I would have never been able to believe in myself again. So be delusional. That's the biggest thing.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you
guys.
Thank you for coming.
And again, I want to thank all of our listeners, our 100 subscribers, and all the love we're on over 1,000 followers on
Yeah.
TikTok, and we just started it. So thank you guys. We'll be back with more content soon. The MHA point of contact hotline number is 701-421-3312. Call us with any questions or if you need any help. Thank you.
In this life we